If you or someone you know has been laid off, you want to watch this video. Over the past 20 years, we have been consulting employers as well as working professionals on just the best practices about severance pay. Now, one of the things you need to know about severance is that not every employer has to offer it. In fact, most employers don't have to offer it at all. So it is, in fact, a benefit. Okay. It is an entitlement. It is not something that has to be paid out. Now, here's a little caveat. If you are an employer watching this, it is important for you to have a standard practice about severance. So you don't want to say, oh, I'm offering severance for this person, but not for this person, because it could appear that there are some discriminatory biases or behaviors that are present. So let's break down severance. Severance is related to the total compensation that is offered to an employee once they separate. So they could separate from an employer, either usually by laying off, meaning that the employer is saying, hey, we are no longer in need of this position, or we're not in a financial state to do this. Sometimes severance is also offered even when you are being fired, and it's not a result of an organizational decision. They just recognize that it's just not a good fit, but they want to see you do well, so they would still offer you a severance, okay? Usually employers are offering between 1 to 2 weeks per year, right? Per year worked, right? So for every year worked, if you separate from the employer, they're usually giving you either 1 week of severance or 2 weeks of severance for the 1 year that you worked at the employer. So, but again, that is not mandatory. It is a best practice. And it is something that you can negotiate, which is what I really want to talk to you about today. So the length of severance pay, again, what I just spoke about, is something that you can negotiate, okay? So let's say they offered you 3 weeks. There are many times I've seen where, separated employees are able to negotiate more than what was offered. So just know that length of severance pay can be negotiated. Another thing that can be negotiated is outplacement services. So that's something that we offer. And if outplacement is not recommended, that's something that you can go back and say, hey, I noticed that there weren't any outplacement services. Is this something that you all would consider? And oh, by the way, if you don't have a company to consider, go ahead and check out the description box below for some options for you. But outplacement services, and if they are offering you outplacement services, whatever the package is, you can negotiate that. So sometimes they may say, hey, with outplacement, you get 3 sessions. Maybe you can negotiate for 4, or maybe you get 1 session with the outplacement services. Maybe you can negotiate for 3. So again, these are options for you. The third thing that I want you to consider negotiating with your severance package is the term for non-compete. So many times an employer would say the only way that you get this severance compensation is if you agree to X, Y, and Z. Or the only way that you get this severance package is if you agree to X, Y, and Z. Now, one of those things that are usually in those severance agreements is that you won't work for a competitor, or you won't go and do this with a competitor. And many times you will see clauses that say you can't do that for a particular period of time. So that is another area that you can negotiate. Say, hey, I noticed that you put here that I can't do this for a year or 6 months or whatever, given that you were the one that terminated me, or you were the one that laid me off as a result of organizational decisions, can we go ahead and eliminate this clause, or can we shorten this to 6 months, or whatever you feel might be, doable for you. So the other thing, the fourth thing that you can negotiate is your length of insurance coverage. So if you are receiving any type of insurance or employee benefits, such as especially your health insurance, so many times what would happen is that the effective date would be effective as of your last day of work. Or maybe they might say, hey, your insurance will be terminated 30 days after we've let you go, or 60 days after. I haven't seen 60 days in a while. But the time frame that they cover your insurance after you end your employment is something that you can negotiate. So if the employer says, hey, your insurance is going to end effective your last date, then maybe you can go and ask them and say, hey, would you mind covering me for another 30 days? That's something that you, again, would you mind covering me for an additional 60 days, right? So again, if you are looking to negotiate your severance package, why don't you go ahead and check out the description box below for a way for you to get a severance package negotiation email template that we've put together for you that you can use to reach out to either your HR at the company and or the hiring official that has sent you that correspondence for laying you off and or about that employment separation. So here's a little bonus tip. If your employer has provided you with a severance agreement, although HR professionals, are great at looking at them, we've drafted them, we've had to review many of them because of the different laws in the different states and best practices that attorneys get to see on a consistent basis. We always recommend that you have an attorney review your severance agreement. Now, if you are like in a position like, how in the world will I ever be able to afford an attorney? There's so many different resources. Maybe you could check your state, your county to see what type of pro bono services are offered. If you want to go with an affordable, cost-effective option, we'll go ahead and post the legal service that we use to review our contracts and documents in the event you want to use that service. But we definitely recommend, because there's some legal jargon. Let me just put it to you this way. The severance agreement that they have you signing was reviewed by their attorneys, right? So it might behoove you to have somebody also look at what you are about to sign, especially if there are, some lingo there that you may not necessarily understand. And here's the other piece too. Attorneys it's not always about finding what's wrong in the agreement or contract. What I have found in my own personal experience is that attorneys can sometimes find what's not there, right? So again, go ahead and figure out what is the best option for you. Listen, if you were looking for career strategy about what to do next in your career, why don't you go ahead and look at the link in the description box below for you to subscribe to our newsletter, as well as to book a career strategy call with us. All right, until next time, don't forget to command your day and the best of everything to you in your next career move.